Happy Sunday, Easter, everybody. I'm coming on surprised that I'm here actually because I was called to come on. And I was intending to spend my Easter in nature by myself, connecting with spirit and just meditating and taking some time off of work. But I was actually called by Lord Yeshua to come on and do some collective energy healing around the subject of Easter and around Christ himself or Yeshua himself in terms of some of the teachings that have been distorted around the world. And you're probably experiencing, if you get online or in any conversation, you're experiencing a kind of a shifting or a tearing of people's belief systems around Yeshua and around Yeshua's teachings, from people who are Christian versus people who are mystics or in other types of understandings. And it's really important that we help the collective to understand that the two perceptions or two types of perceptions around Christ are actually, they're sort of true, but you need to blend the two of them to have a total understanding. And so I'm a little bit I guess just a little concerned about doing this video because I know that people get very heated on these types of subjects. And so I'm just going to breathe my way through it and try to do the best I can. First, I just want to let you know, if you're new to my channel, I am an ascension teacher, basically. I'm an ascended being. I am a Christ conscious being. I have gone through enlightenment. I am a Christed being. I'm one of the Christos founders that came and descended onto Earth from premortal years. And I have full memory of that. I've had my 12-strand DNA activated and beyond. And I have a conscious memory of the premortal world prior to coming here. So I have a galactic and angelic collective that I work with. And I have soul remembrance that I chose to come in during this timeline to assist humanity in the Great Awakening. And in order to go through the Great Awakening, we really have to bridge the gap between different types of belief systems to meet into the middle where love lives. Love can't live there if we're continuously resisting each other and not understanding teachings. And when it comes to Jesus or Yeshua or Christianity, there is a lot of distorted understanding that I was shown in my own spiritual awakening. And for those of you that are new to my channel, I have died multiple times, left my body, gone back to God's source, been shown things in the angelic realms, and come back more than once. The first time it happened when I was 4, and then throughout my life it happened a few other times. And then the last one, it happened in my 30s, was extremely profound, where I was shown all of the timelines and the whole story of humanity. And since then I've begun to work with angelic guides and ascended masters, and including Lord Yeshua, or who you know to be Jesus, and Mary Magdalene for that matter. So I was actually contacted today to come on and do this video on Easter Sunday to try to help bring some healing around those teachings and this subject. And like I said, I'm not complaining, but I wasn't intending to do this. I was spiritually called to. So I hope that this video reaches who it was meant for, and I'll just take it step at a time as we go. Again, I want you to know that I have a Christian background. So I'm very familiar with Christian teachings, Christian belief systems, and why they think the way that they do. And in lots of ways, there's a lot of accurate truths there. And then in other ways, it's actually just been distorted or misunderstood over time, because when Yeshua was on the earth, he really had to speak with a cloak. In fact, a lot of us now who are key holders or code keepers of sacred knowledge are here having to speak a little bit in a cloak also in these times. We're a little more bold about it, but it's still kind of dangerous. That's why we're getting kicked off of all of these platforms, and people are getting, unalived, and all kinds of things are happening because there are dark forces that are working against the process of the Great Awakening, just as they did with Yeshua in his time. So I just want to put that out there. But there was a lot of his teachings and a lot of the teachings now that are being spoken with a cloak so that you have to learn to decode. There is nobody that can just give you on a silver platter cosmic wisdom. You have to learn to decode information within your own self. And there's lots of reasons why, because we are working against beings who do not have the highest good for humanity at heart. And so we have a lot that we're working against. And even in this audience here, people watching, a lot of them aren't going to believe what I'm saying, or they're not going to like what I'm saying, and they create problems. So we have to be a little bit careful with ourselves if we want to be able to share the messages to those who it's meant for. So the purpose of coming on today, as guided by Yeshua, is that I was asked to come and help people understand what he was trying to say. And I'm being corrected even as I speak that it wasn't just him doing those teachings. A lot of his knowledge actually came from Mary Magdalene, the feminine codex. And so the feminine and the masculine have to work together, and they learn from each other. And so a lot of Yeshua's teachings actually came from the creator wisdom from Mary Magdalene. And so anyhow, we'll get started. First of all, I wrote a couple notes so I wouldn't forget. So basically what we're doing is we're trying to help people understand the difference between Christianity versus mysticism, psychics, etc. And the first one that Yeshua is asking me to correct and address right now is the fact that there are a lot of Christian people who are abusing and bashing and bullying emotional violence, and even physical violence against mystics who are psychic, because they don't understand the teachings and how a person actually becomes psychic. And I won't go into too many details, but there are lots of layers of spiritual wisdom. So there are some psychics that are in early stages of development, and then there are Christed beings who go through actual illumination and enlightenment, which is what Christ went through. And that enlightenment is what the real resurrection was about. The teachings have been twisted. And so it's really important that you try to open your mind. And as I say, open your mind, Christ says, if the door's not open, Christ can't sup. If your mind is not open, you can't gain that Christed wisdom. It's really that simple. So that's one of the teachings that he taught, and a lot of people misunderstood what that means. A lot of Christian people think that that means, oh, well, I got to open my door to every neighbor that comes over or whatever. No, that's not what it's saying at all. In fact, you're not supposed to open the door to every neighbor that comes over. You're supposed to test every spirit, because not every spirit that comes claiming to be there for the right reason is actually there for the right reason. You really have to learn how to start decoding and using discernment if you're going to get through the ascension portal. And ascension means that you're going back to source again. And how are you going to get there if you don't have an open mind? Because by the way, the mind is both your sixth and your seventh chakra, your third eye and your crown chakra. And if you don't have those portals open, you can't ascend. So trying to connect with a psychic or a mystic or somebody else like that, and then bashing and bullying them for what they happen to know because your mind is closed, is you sinning. And that's just the cold hard truth. So we're here to try to help you understand that, so that you can start to continue to walk around with an open mind and try to understand and decode those teachings. Those teachings were written in such a way where you would have to decode them, so that the dark forces, and we have many of them in our planet right now and in other planets, that are trying to hijack those codes to bypass their way back into godhood. The reason why is because there are great rewards in the higher dimensions for those who truly walk the path of righteousness, which is basically how you become illuminated or enlightened. And those were all the teachings that Christ or Yeshua tried to teach on the earth, as well as many other teachers. And so here Christ is again speaking to me at this time, asking me to help you understand. And he's really I can feel the passion in his energy right now of really wanting humanity to understand that he did not say to worship him. It's really, really upsetting for Lord Yeshua, because worshiping him is not what he was trying to say, and nor is it in alignment with source. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't honor him and deeply love him and are grateful for all of his gifts that he brought forward, but it means that if you're putting him on a pedestal above every other soul that is a child of God, then you're distorting the balance of love, and love is a round table. So if you're worshiping him like he's the only one that's chosen from God, that is a distortion. He's correcting you right now in saying, I told you that I would return in the faces of many. And he's talking about his Christed energy, which is my Christed energy, which is the Christed energy of any soul that goes through illumination, and therefore you yourself can go through. That means that you yourself can become a Christed being by learning the spiritual laws and learning to step into alignment with your soul. And that's what he was trying to teach the people on earth, as many others have been trying to teach these things too. But here we have people on this side and this side, and they're getting beat up. And a lot of the mystics or psychics, what are psychic gifts? Psychic gifts come from source. It means that you are directly connected to source. Now, yes, there are lots of false prophets out there and lots of false psychics out there, and that's a distortion also. That's very dark stuff there that is not coming from the Christed light. But the true beings who have gone through enlightenment, they are psychic because they are given those spiritual gifts from God's source by way of illumination and by way of activating all of their portals from their root chakra all the way up to source. And they have direct connection to source and direct guidance from source. And that's exactly what happened to Christ that caused him to go through enlightenment, that led him to help teach so many people on the earth. Now, those teachings have been very hijacked in lots of ways. That's why he wanted me to bring forth some of this understanding. So let me just look at my notes, because there were a few other things. So, and he gave me a little joke and said, we're doing a Sunday sermon today. I'm not a preacher, but you know, if that's what I'm guided to do, that's what I'm going to do. So let's see. Easter illumination, yeah. So he wants me to talk about the rise of the Kundalini and how this is very much connected to what he was talking about. Christ actually did have a Kundalini activation, and he had a full-blown light body activation. So what's happening is the rise of the Christ, or the resurrection, happens when your Kundalini activates and rises through all of your chakras and goes through and opens up your third eye and your crown chakra, and goes back to God's source, causing what's called a light body activation. That happens when your third eye opens, and your third eye can't open totally. Sometimes you can open it partially, and a lot of people are doing that, and then they think they had a third eye opening, and it's not the same thing. There's full-blown activations that happen once a soul goes through lots of archetypal embodiment codes, and they'll have to go through training for that. And then when that happens, it causes a light body activation. And that's what Christ said when he said, if thine eye be single, thy whole body will be full of light. Well, he's talking about that Kundalini activation, how it activates your third eye, and it activates your light body. And a lot of people who are, again, dabbling with, you know, psychedelics and things like that, they're starting to tap into some of that activation, but it's not happening all the way, because you can't cheat the soul lessons. The soul lessons have to be earned in order for the higher realm to allow you to access certain portals and certain dimensions. And so anyway, that's what he was talking about, and he really wanted to be clear about that is the resurrection of the soul. Because when your Kundalini is not activated, which a lot of humanity does not have activated Kundalini right now. So what's happening is they're living in their third density consciousness. And in their third density consciousness, they're trying to understand things from a mind perspective. and they are not fully activated in their soul. Their codes aren't active, their DNA is not activated. They're walking around in a 2-strand DNA embodiment, where some of us have 12 strands or more. So imagine the kind of wisdom that you have when you have 12 strands activated versus 2 strands. There's a lot that happens to the soul when it goes through that state of evolution. And so essentially, the Kundalini, when it finally activates, it activates through lots of different rites of passage, basically, and it will take you through cosmic portals to allow you to gain cosmic wisdom that's beyond this world. And that Kundalini will sit dormant in your lower chakra system until you're actually ready. And when it's ready, it will rise up in you and cause the resurrection of your soul. Now, another Christian teaching that I've talked about before in shorter videos is the concept of Christ saying, oh, you shouldn't talk to dead people. Well, this is what Christ was talking about, is that when your Kundalini is not activated, you're kind of a dead person walking. You're what we would call a spiritual zombie, because you're unalive on a soul level, and your soul isn't fully present. And so I think it's Deuteronomy that was in that you weren't supposed to talk to dead people, even if they're familiars, like brothers and sisters, because they're not, their soul's not there. Like, it's not their soul that's there. It's this human version of self, this personality that thinks it's real, that isn't really real. That's what your ego self is. And so that's part of what he wanted me to bring forth. He's also asked me to talk about the fact that, again, he said, ye are gods. And so here is all these Christian people that are saying, well, you're supposed to worship Christ in order to get to God. Well, the truth is that that's not the truth. And it's not that you can't appreciate the gifts and study what he taught, because he certainly came as a teacher, and that was meant for you to have a template to begin working with. But you also have to go inside, and you have to decode that information, and you have to start to find the God within you, the connection to you, and therefore God. And ye are gods means that ye are just like me. That's what Christ is saying. You are just like me. He's not above you. You're getting fooled with some distorted misinformation. And so let's see. And then, yeah, okay. So the last part is going to be a little more complex. And again, I will look at, and I've talked to some of my audience before about doing some workshops where we can decode scripture for you to help you understand the enlightened perspective of Christ's teachings. Because when you really understand what he's saying from an enlightened perspective, it's going to make perfect sense for you. But again, so many people are going to church and thinking, oh, we've got to worship this, and then they're getting put out of alignment, because the moment that you start to put somebody above you, including Yeshua, you are out of alignment with source. Spirituality is a round table. All souls are equal. Every single one of us is an aspect of God incarnate. And to put any teacher above you is actually distorted. It's out of alignment. We're all equal. Now, are there souls that are far more advanced than others? Very much so. There are some souls on the earth plane right now that are literally light years ahead in advancement, and they're here as way shores, just as Yeshua was, to assist the collective in the ascension process, which will go on for at least 1,000 years now. We are, and I'm being reminded by Yeshua that we are in a timeline where this is the great tribulation. This is the time of rapture, and this is going to go on for 1,000 years. And so you are being called to really get things right here with your soul, and really decode this information, and you have the chance to do it. But you yourself are never going to get there if you don't open that mind. The mind has to be open from away from the teachings that you've had enough to expand yourself. Okay, is it possible that this could be true, that the Kundalini has to activate? Is it possible that the way that we perceived it at church was a little bit different than the way that Christ was trying to teach it? And that's all you have to do. You're not violating God by asking these questions. You're not doing anything wrong by asking these questions. You're just opening your mind, and you're allowing yourself to start to contemplate a different way of seeing things, so that you can start to understand the wisdom that was built into you. Your third eye is your pineal gland, and you can research it. If you research your pineal gland, you'll see that that eye is actually wired right into your brain, exactly like your other two eyes are. It sees from the spirit world, and these two see in the human world, and then they talk to each other in the brain to be able to decode what's spiritually true and what's happening in the world. And if you don't understand that, then you're going to have a lot of trouble, working through this stage of evolution. So I hope that that makes sense for you. I'm going to just hear a little more messaging here. I'm also guided to remind those of you that are watching that may be against psychics or against mystics or against those people because your religion told you that that was the way to be, that Yeshua was a psychic. He was a starseed. He remembered his multi-dimensional self. He accessed the God mind. He went through enlightenment. That's how you access the God mind. And he had those gifts also. That's how he was able to give sermons and see things in people and create miracles, is because he went through illumination. So he was a psychic. Those teachings that you guys are hearing in church are just distorted. It's been distorted. Your books have been oppressed. And until you understand that, you can start to work with an open mind. You're gonna continue to violate the spiritual laws, and you're gonna continue to violate the heart of God. And the heart of God exists through every single soul. So every time that you're crucifying or bashing a psychic or a mystic or an energy healer or somebody who has some esoteric knowledge or occult knowledge, you're actually still harming the heart of God. Love thy neighbor as thyself means exactly that. Don't hate them because you think your religious belief is better than their religious belief. You just like, it's like you're getting this one message to love each other. Oh yeah, it sounds great. And then, oh, we got to hate them because they're psychic and they're doing these bad things. And by the way, I'm being reminded again by Yeshua that in his time on earth, the people who started to write those teachings saying that it was wrong for you to be psychic were trying to keep you dumbed down, because psychic gifts come from source creator and they come from alignment with source. So those who are not aligned with source don't access their gifts. Well, how do you get out of alignment with source? Beat up a psychic or deny your own gifts or deny your own knowingness. It's like you're being told the truth on one hand and told a lie on the other hand, and it's creating this divisive mind, and it's taking you right out of alignment with your creator and therefore your own soul. And so I hope that this message resonates for whomever it's meant for. I am going to work on posting it today, and don't crucify me. Namaste.